Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. We are looking ahead to Fantasy Premier League Game Week 32. It's a blank game week, but there's plenty of options to choose from. And we've got a special focus on differentials this time around because there's a few free hits in play, so we can take a few risks. We're getting our crystal balls out as well, obviously with the goals imminent and assists imminent tables. These are used to predict future returns. Well, that's the hope, hopefully. But I have tweaked them a little bit because when I was doing the goals imminent table, almost every single player on it is missing a fixture or is they're blank gaming, or they're just no. In fact, they were all missing a fixture. I don't think it existed, the goals imminent table. I think it was maybe one name on it. So, nevertheless, I've tweaked that a bit. I've reduced the number of shots they need to get onto that, and that's thrown up some names. So that's good. It's back. Okay. So we'll have our team reveals. We'll have a live Q&A. My name is Joe, and joining me as ever is Fantasy Football Scouts Deputy Editor Tom. Tom, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks, Joe. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm probably 70-30, I'd say, playing a free hit this week, but I haven't activated it, and I want to get a bit of input from not only you but the chat as well, and have a look at my team as it looks at this moment now. So yeah, looking forward to it, and hopefully we can unearth a few kind of gems along the way for our free hits if I do play it.
Definitely. Well, I'm definitely free hitting. I've been planning it for a few weeks now, and my team, I only had 4 or 5 players. So I had to play it. So I'm definitely free hitting. But this hopefully will be for free hitters and free hitters alike. And also just the free hit curious as well, like yourself. Okay. Looking at the live chat here. Welcome to Luke, Araful, Gavin, Delia, Graham, Corey, Gold FPL. I think I was maybe chatting with Gold FPL a little bit earlier. I was talking about a certain Newcastle midfielder. Apologies if it wasn't you, but someone was. And welcome to the live chat. Hopefully many more of you will appear as we go on the live stream. Do have a think about your questions for the end. So when we talk about our teams, have a think about your questions and then put them in the live chat, and then we'll deal with them there. Another bit of housekeeping. Do press that like button. Do subscribe. And also a reminder that all of our videos are available as podcasts as well. So you don't have to look at us. You can listen to us instead. Okay. Let's move on to see how we got on last week in the goals imminent table. And spoiler alert, we did really well. So let's have a go. Let's have a look here. Oh, look at this. Now this is good because I'll read out the names in a sec, but we've got a lot of goals here, and those that didn't score, a lot of them just didn't play, so we just didn't have any chance there. So out of those that played, it's a pretty good success rate this week. The absolute star at the top is Solanke. He was the top of our goals imminent and rewarded us with a couple of goals. He's not in your team. He's not in my team. He's not in hardly any teams. So if you got him, you've got a big rank rise. If you were free hit, would you get him in?
I'd be tempted. I think he would definitely be on the short list of the forwards this week. He got, what was it, a goal and 2 assists at the weekend at Spurs, 15 points, I think. And we spoke about it last week. We spoke that he's taken a lot of shots. I think his XG delta was really low across the whole season. You know, he hasn't been particularly clinical, but the volume of shots was there. And Bournemouth just generally look much better, don't they, over the past few weeks? I think they've got 4 wins in 6 now. They look like they're kind of edging towards safety, playing with more confidence. And on a free hit, it's West Ham, isn't it? And now West Ham are in Conference League action on Thursday. Bournemouth have had a week off. So, yeah, I quite like that Solanke. I'm not quite sure if he would make the cut, the 3, but he'd be very close if he doesn't.
Well, when I talk about my free hit team a bit later, he has been in it and he has come out of it, and he may come back in it again, but he's one of about 3 strikers vying for 1 place in my team. So it's a tough competition, but the fact that Solanke's there against some other much bigger names in FPL is quite something. The other thing I noticed is just looking at him, you know, when strikers have confidence, they just do use confidence. There's something about strikers as well. They have a certain sort of swagger about them. especially when they're in form. There's something about Solanke. He in his head, he's Superman, I think, and that's
Yeah,
what you
because
want.
he'd really been suffering from confidence a few
Yeah,
weeks ago. He's on a really poor run, but we always said he's the focal point of that team. We think he's on penalties as well,
yeah.
and so as soon as Bournemouth, as soon as they start to get a bit of that confidence, they start impacting games in the final third a bit more. I think he was always going to become a decent option given his price of what 5.5 million, isn't it?
Definitely.
It's hard to argue with him really at that value.
Yeah, and Solanke's just reminded me of I was a bit earlier. I was stumbling over my words a bit for the talking about why I had to tweak the goals imminent table for the coming up for the game week 32. Not only had those were blanking, weren't playing, but they were like Solanke. They've hopped off the table for good reason because they've already arrived. They're no longer imminent. Their goals arrived. Next up, Havertz at Chelsea, blanking this week. So let's sort of sketch over him. We can come back to him next week when we look at a full set of fixtures there. Nketiah at Arsenal. I don't think anyone's going to go there. There's so much competition with Arsenal, but he has come back. He is back now. But there's no danger of him replacing Jesus up front, is there, in the starting lineup?
I don't think so. He came on really late at the weekend when they were chasing the 3 points at West Ham. I think he will be that kind of impact sub for the remainder of the season. Now I think Trossard's ahead of him as well for that second, so he's probably third choice forward at the moment. So I don't think there's any danger.
Okay, Mitrovic will sketch over. He's in the fourth match of his 8-match ban. I can't remember which, but anyway, he's in the middle of it. He ain't playing soon. Elise's next. He let us down, but did he? He's the assist man, and it's Eze is the goal man. And I was looking at the stats because that will be probably a key consideration in a lot of free hit teams. They can choose between Elise and Eze. They can even field both. But I've got that interpretation right, isn't it? Eze's the goal man from midfield, whereas Elise's the assist man from out wide. Is that right?
Yeah, I suppose if we really want to simplify it, that's kind of a good analogy, really. I mean, Eze's playing in this number 8 role, so he tends to be a bit more central, whereas Elise has that creative threat from crosses into the box, from set pieces. Palace are just playing with more freedom under Hodgson, aren't they? 3 games, 3 wins. They didn't create loads against Southampton, but they have got that bit more quality in the final third, which we're starting to see now. Olise was really unlucky as well to not have a goal on this table because he had a goal ruled out and he actually hit the post with a free kick in stoppage time, I think it was. So looks a good option. But yeah, it's another key question, isn't it? Do you go with a Palace midfielder on a free hit? And if so, Eze or Elise, or there might be another one which we touch on a bit later as well, a third option. They're becoming like Brighton, aren't they? So
I know. Yeah. I mean, they can dream that they're like Brighton, but they're not.
Not quite there yet.
I mean, why is it that because the way he's scoring, his goal threat, when I was looking at on the Fantasy Football Scout in the members area, the comparison between them, that's why I've got that Elise, just assist potential is huge, goal potential less so, but enough to get on our tables here. But Eze is getting that goal threat, but why is it that he's getting the goal threat also why is it just they're all getting the goal threat? Because I was going to say instead of say like Edouard or RU, they're getting goal threat as well.
A bit more, but I think that Eze is kind of benefiting. They play 3 midfielders. They play Doucouré at the base and then Schlupp as well. So I think Eze does have that freedom to get behind a strike because they've settled on Edouard for now. And I think that he's a good player at bringing others into play. Eze's getting closer to him. We saw the goal at Leeds when he got beyond him. So that's where the goal threat's coming from, where Olise tends to be that little bit wider. Don't get me wrong, I think Olise is still going to score goals and I think Eze is still going to assist them. But I think what you said, I think that Eze seems to have a bit more of the goal threat. Olise seems to be a bit more creative. That's a good way of looking at it, I think. So for free hitters, look at the opposition this week, look at, get in the members area, look at where they're conceding crosses from, and that might give you some clues as who to pick.
Okay. Pereira's next at Fulham. He is a good differential. He's probably the most well-owned differential, but he's 4.3. There's no Mitrovic, so he'll be on penalties. And Fulham face Leeds. So, And Leeds have just got. I mean, I know it's against Liverpool and they were hammered, but they were properly hammered. They were hammered in the sort of
Yeah.
hammered that my local team Yeovil would get hammered should a Premier League team rack up to the ground. And I think Fulham. I think Pereira didn't this time out, but I think he could get a return next time out.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad shout because Leeds, it's not just Liverpool, is it? They got hammered the week before by Palace as well, so it's not just the strength of Liverpool's attack.
Yeah, he is. If money is needed, I think he's a good option. And of course, Fulham have a double, so if you don't have a free hit and you're looking to get some doublers in the future, I think Pereira's a good option. Anthony at Manchester United finally gets rewarded us. He's popped on and off this table for a while, but finally he's got there. Of course, he blanks next time out, so we'll sort of sketch over him. Zaha injured, we think. We'll check on the team news, but we think he's unlikely to return, so we can sort of sketch over him. Ben Rama is next on penalties. Everyone sort of, I mean, because everyone hates penalty takers at the moment. They forgot about penalty takers and forgot about some of the teams they're not interested in, like West Ham. And Ben Rama steps up, but he is actually an effective penalty taker.
Yes.
I think he's a good option, a good differential as well for the coming week. 5.5 million. What do you think?
He plays, yeah. I think we've always said he's good if he's on the pitch. 5.5 million on penalties. It's just always that minutes worry with Ben Rama because I think he was benched the week before that. But after a really good performance against Arsenal, see what happens on Thursday in the Conference League. But if he puts in another good showing then and he starts, then you back him for another start against Bournemouth, isn't it? So again, I don't dislike it. It's just minutes which could be a problem.
Okay, I'm going to sketch over Rashford here because he's obviously got a blank as well, and I'm really hoping that my partner shuts my dog up in a minute as well, because you might not be able to hear that, but I can.
No, I can't.
Well, that's fine then. Hopefully it's the positioning of the mic. It's just in my ears. But hopefully he should be quiet in a second. So, yeah, Rashford, we're going to sketch over him. But that's one, to bear in mind should he return from injury soon, which could be as soon as game week 33. So we'll look out next week for that.
Yeah, we've got the Sevilla match and then they play Brighton, don't they, at the weekend? So we're going to have two presses before that. Yeah. And it sounded like he had a chance last week when we last heard from Ten Hag. So let's see.
Yes, definitely. Okay, let's have a look at the assists imminent table. As ever in life, it's Brighton that saves the day, and so we had a whole string of blanks here. But some weren't playing, but some. So we got James and Chilwell. They're still offering promise, still not delivering. For Chelsea, but Chelsea aren't playing, so we'll sort of sketch over them. Manchester United, just mentioned that Bruno was amazing and still came away with nothing. Now I own him.
Okay.
I'm not getting rid of him, but I own him in my normal team, not my free hit team. But yeah, Fernandes, he's going to return. He's going to haul big soon, and he could time it for 34.
Yeah. Owners are so unlucky. I mean, well, I say unlucky. We got a bit lucky in the warm-up because Sabitzer was due to play. And then he got injured in the warm-up, which meant Eriksen came into the starting 11, and that allowed Bruno to take up this more advanced role, which is where we all want him. But he came close to scoring on a couple of occasions. He created a lot of chances. I think he had 8 penalty box touches, which was the most of any player on either side. And that just shows you the fact that he was getting to impact the game in the opponent's box more than he was to if he was in that deeper lying role. So, a definite hold for who do they play in 30? So they've got Tottenham in 33, and then it's the double game week. Yeah. So I think if it works out quite well for free hits if you are free hitting this week because you can keep him.
Sabitzer's injury moved him up the pitch. So I mean, owners can be sort of double unlucky really because he was actually putting up good numbers from a deeper role the week before.
He was, but it was great. It was great to see United with that midfield triangle back because it was Casemiro. Yeah. Eriksen and Fernandes, they created close to 4 XG in that match at Forest, and I think that it looks good for them now they're all back.
Well, it also looks good for Rashford when he comes back because an actual finisher. I mean, I'm not to disparage Martial, but he's no Rashford. We got Gray at Everton next, a differential, but I'm going to find it difficult to persuade people to go to Everton. And then 2 Brighton players. This underlines just how dominant Brighton were over Chelsea. Casado and Estupiñán. both on their the table going into that match, and I suspect they'll figure highly, in future tables. Kante at Chelsea, there he is. Chelsea. We'll just sketch over them. Shaw, going to sketch over him. Doubly sketch over him. Manchester United blank, and he was injured, so he should be back though. He should be back for Seville. Is that the theme?
Well, yeah, he was kind of touch and go, I think, for the weekend against Forest, but then he didn't feature at all. And Ten Hag didn't say anything. In fact, I haven't heard anything since that pre-match press conference for Forest about his availability. I presume we'll hear from Ten Hag tomorrow, so might get an update there. But it sounds like he's close.
Good stuff. Gross, he's always on our imminent table, and here he is. I suspect he'll hop off for good reason. So so many options there at Brighton. But they don't play.
Do you think he goes? Do you think he goes to right back, Joe?
Yeah,
if Veltman out.
Yeah, Veltman's out. That'll be the standard. Also, I mean, there's so many options. Lallana's back in training, so we might start seeing him in a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know how far he's off. It's McAllister. I'm a McAllister owner, and he's one I'm looking to drop because I don't think he's effective. I don't think you can rely on penalties this season. Penalties have dried up in general, and those who have taken them are missing them. So I'm not as bullish on penalty takers. And so, McAllister might be the one to make way for Salah for me, because I do have Kane as well as the cash cow.
Yeah. Well, if Gross goes to right back, you'd expect McAllister to drop in, and then, like you say, you've got Lallana who's back training as well. So you're probably thinking that he did mention, I think, Dizabi, that Marsh could play right back as well, but I don't really see that. Do you, Joe?
We got the young lad in Cisco, who's just amazing as well. Another find. He can play there. I mean, we've just got options. So I think if Lamptey's out, if Veltman's out, Gross will probably play right back, and that will move McAllister into that sort of deeper central midfield role.
So if you had to pick 2 midfielders now, who would it be?
Oh, from Brighton. Oh, without a shadow of doubt, Matoma and March.
Yeah.
Because they're both the guys on the wings, and Matoma's more clinical and can do special things, but March is just constantly shooting and creating chances. I personally am looking. This is. I need to sort of get my team back to see whether I can do it or not. But I am actually thinking of getting Welbeck in. Or Ferguson.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
because whenever he plays, Welbeck does pretty well in this team, doesn't he?
So that's it. I mean, I'll take half a match of Welbeck because they are so attacking at the moment. So I don't know whether I can do it. But the 3 players I'm looking at are Alexander-Arnold, Salah, and whoever I can get as a striker to make way for that. And if it's Ferguson, so be it. And if he's back, then great. And Cisco could be a punt there, but Welbeck would be the one I would really want. And I'm really happy to take a hit in Game Week 34 because it's a sort of a mini wild card, and I think my team needs a bit of a refresh. I think those of us that wild card in 26 or 27 can probably do with a bit of a spring clean in their team.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think a hit is worth it for that. Many already did that with the likes of Salah and Alexander-Arnold already in this week, and they took a hit, and it was paid off in style.
Well done if you did, because as a non-owner, that was a tough match to watch last night.
Definitely. Kovacic rounds it off there. Just mention him there. Chelsea aren't playing, and I don't think many people go for Kovacic. There's so many good cheap options, so why bother? Right, I'll put the goals imminent table up now. So this is a different one. The main goals imminent table, as I said, is mainly full of Chelsea, Man City and Manchester United players and Brighton players because they're so attacking. Some of them are scoring, some of them aren't. So they're dominating the table. Also on that table last week, the players like Solanke and the Crystal Palace players, they all leapt off because they've all done well. Eze's not on there, because he's scoring. So I lowered the number of shots just to see if I could find anyone for you. So what I've done is I've lowered the shots to 8 shots. It's no longer 10 shots over the last 4 matches, no more than 1 goal. and it's now 8 shots, and that has thrown up some names. Also, what I've done is the assists imminent table's fine, that doesn't need tweaking. And I've also got a best differentials table, irrespective of how much they have scored. So just to put that into context and throw up some more names of low owned players. I've also put the percentage owned in there. So at top here, last 4 matches they have played is in fact Calvert-Lewin. So if he is back finally for Everton, that does signal that he could be due a goal. He's had 2 big chances in his last 4 matches he's played, and he's missed both those. He's had a couple of shots on target, 8 shots inside the box, 9 in total on his last 4 that he played. I don't think he's that bad a choice. It's just the price and striker slots. So I'm probably right in saying no one's going to consider him. I can't persuade anyone there.
It's just the injuries, isn't it? Yeah. And he seems to have been close to a comeback. Dyche has been talking about it for about 3 or 4 weeks now, and he doesn't appear. So don't think he is an option. But when he does play, we saw it in his last appearance. He played in the first match under Dyche, I think, against Arsenal, and he was really effective. So not writing him off for the season. No. There might come a time when we look at him in a few weeks if he's playing regularly. But it's very punty on a game week 32 transfer using it on Calvert-Lewin.
Definitely. So yeah, moving down, we got a bit more like it here. Maddison. Now Leicester are terrible, but Maddison isn't. So I'm seeing a lot of Maddison on free hit teams. He's not personally in mine. He's not actually someone I've even considered. He hasn't even flirted with my side. So that probably means he'll do well. But he's 8.4% owned, one of the highest owns out of this list. He's had a big chance. He's missed it. He's had 4 shots on target, 5 shots inside the box, 8 in total. And he's marginally underperforming in what he should be doing in terms of expected goal delta there. Maddison, if you were to free hit, would Maddison be there?
Probably.
Oh.
Yeah, I think because I think, Dean Smith's come in there. I don't think you can read too much into that Man City match at the weekend. Saw some people talking about how much XG Leicester racked up, and they did have chances at the end of the game, but got to look at the game state in that match. I mean, City had made a lot of subs, hadn't they, at that point? They'd taken off a lot of players, and Leicester did look better when Iheanacho came on, and Maddison had that really good chance at the end when he should have scored. But I just think this first match at home with Dean Smith in charge, I think this is the big match where they have to get something out of this match. They were to lose to Wolves at the weekend. They are in they're in trouble already, but they're in real trouble. I think they're going to be massively up for this game.
Okay.
And they've got the players there. If Dean Smith and Shakespeare and Terry are on the coaching staff, if they can get them up for this game, they've got the quality there to score goals. And I do think that it would be typical of a player like Maddison for everybody to take him out on a free hit after sticking by him for so long, and then for him to return. He's got too much quality to just simply stop returning full stop. So it's all about what you think Dean Smith can do and if he can kind of galvanise them for this match. But yeah, I think if I free hit, there's probably one slot in a free hit in most midfields, isn't there, for not a punt, but a player outside of Arsenal and Liverpool. So he would be in it.
But that's your thing, isn't it? I remember when we did a Meet the Manager video. Every Meet the Manager video, one of them's got a thing. So the FPL General's got his watch list. But with your thing was the punty fourth midfielder. Your 3 midfielders are sort of your normal point scorers, and your fourth one's a bit of a punt, and you like to field that in a 3-4-3. So that feels that's you, isn't it? Getting Maddison does help.
It's quite an exciting kind of spot. I always find I love picking midfield. Doing the differentials for Scout every week. Midfield is the go-to place because you can kind of unearth some gems. I mean, remember a couple of weeks ago we spoke about Jacob Ramsey, who's suddenly kind of he's on the radar for some free hitters as well. We'll talk about it as a bit. Do you want to go 2 Villa attackers at Brighton? Because everybody's going to have Watkins. I'm not sure you do, but it's that kind of really low-owned player where you don't see, and I do like taking a punt on that position. But Maddison, he's not quite in the Ramsey territory, but he's somebody, him or a Bowen. that kind of £7-8 million kind of spot. He's somebody I'd give a bit of thought to. I wouldn't write him off just because of what's happened. I think you've got to look at this match now against Wolves and say, will they get that new manager bounce this weekend? Because they really need it, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Pereira's next. We can sort of only briefly mention because we've already spoken about him really, but he's still here. He's still showing promise. 5 shots on target, 7 shots inside the box last 4 matches, 18 shots. Have I got that right? Kind of total that is 18 shots. That's double everyone else on here, and he's only 4.3. So see, at the moment, I'm undecided between Elise and Eze. So I have them both because I don't know which. But whichever goes, probably Elise, but I don't know. Whichever one goes, because they're my first sub at the moment. I'm not fielding them anyway. I'm probably going to get Pereira because I think, as it stands, I think Pereira is the outstanding first sub in a free hit team. Because, I mean, he's cheap, but you don't need the money. But it's the stats rather than how cheap he is. Playing Leeds, who are terrible, and he's had 18 shots, and he's a 4.3 midfielder. So that's amazing. So yeah, I'm very keen on Pereira.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting for Fulham as well is they've looked really bad recently, haven't they, Joe, without Mitrovic, but they switched it up at Goodison Park. So Vinicius didn't play, and they played Dan James as their number 9. Now, he came in and made an impact. Harry Wilson came in as well and looked really good. Willian looked really good. Now, Dan James is ineligible to play in 30.
Yeah, I was going to say, he hasn't been bought. He's still on loan, isn't he?
Yeah, and so he can't play against his parent club. So then that might affect the dynamic a bit, which worked so well at the weekend, because they all look a bit static with Vinicius in there. Maybe he'll try and bring on more of a like for like, but I think people will start looking at Fulham a bit now. I think Harry Wilson might be somebody that people start to talk about a bit because it's that fixture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Leeds at home, confidence is at rock bottom there. Fulham are going to get chances, aren't they? I don't see Leeds holding firm and not conceding. So Pereira, he would be up there, wouldn't he? I can see him being on quite a few free hit benches and him getting a goal. And if he gets a goal, because he's a playmaker, because he touches, makes a lot of key passes, he often gets bonus. So, I think he could do all right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way you're talking now, maybe you should put him in the main team. But
it's hard to put a 4.3 in a free hit team, isn't it?
I definitely want him. I definitely want him near my team. Or in it. Bowen's next, 3.5% owned. He's had a big chance. He scored from it. So none missed. Couple of shots on target, 6 inside the box, 9 shots in total. He is away from home. We know he does better at home. So that's what's putting me off the away. And Bournemouth, I think, are quite resilient recently. I think there's better options, but I think Bowen is an option. I don't want to dismiss him. But
I think I'd agree with that, Joe. It was an interesting interview with him at the weekend. He spoke about pre-World Cup, how much pressure he felt like he was under trying to get into that England squad. And now he said that it feels like the shackles are off a little bit. I think he's returned in 3 matches in a row. So again, he's another player to look at free hit, I think. But the away thing is worth noting, which you made a good point about there.
And then the next player won't be in many free hit teams. He's certainly not in many teams. He's 1.1% owned Pro at Tottenham, who face Newcastle. He has had a big chance. He scored from it. He's had a shot on target, but he's had 5 shots inside the box and 8 shots in total. That is a lot for someone who is listed as a defender, especially a 4.81. I'm starting to think he is possibly, even if they concede, are you looking for defenders to get an attacking return? I think he's up there in that list. What do you think about Perot as a differential option?
Yeah, I mean, we put him in the scout picks last week and it failed miserably, but this is why we put him in. You're seeing there's some good underlying numbers there. I love the Spurs wing backs because they play so high up the pitch, whether it's under Conte or Stellini. I think he put in 13 crosses against Bournemouth, and only a couple were from corners. So, the assist potential's there. There's a little bit of goal threat. It's a tough fixture. I think I think we'll see a bit of a reaction from Newcastle. But yeah, defenders are quite hard to pinpoint this week, aren't they? Especially if you go triple Arsenal attack, and so that takes out a Ben White or a Gabriel.
Yeah.
There's slots to fill, and I know people are looking around at players like Alex Moreno and Porro kind of fits the bill in that sense that, yeah, they might concede, but there's attacking threat there.
Okay, next up is Bamford. He didn't play this time around for Leeds. Leeds are awful, but nevertheless, every time Bamford plays, he does look like he's going to score. He's never on the pitch that much this season, but when he has been a threat. He often appears in these tables if you sort by last matches they played rather than game weeks. Because that shows that, you know, whenever he does play, he has a threat there. He's had 6 shots inside the box, just 1 on target, 8 shots in total, and a big chance, but he's missed that. 0.5% owned. I don't think I'm going to persuade anyone to use a striker spot for Patrick Bamford, but nevertheless, here he is here, and it'll be interesting to see if he does actually deliver on this. But I mean, as I said, I think he's injured though, so I think we can probably sketch over him.
Yeah, they played Rodrigo last night, didn't they? But it didn't really work. So if he is fit, he'll probably come back in. But yeah, wait for an update on that. But again, very difficult to fit in a player given the volume of good forwards this week.
Okay, Andre is saying our volume is super low. Now it's coming across pretty clearly in my headphones.
Okay.
I've had this on a couple of times before, and my answer is, could you turn your volume up? And your computer, because sometimes their computer volume's low, and then they just but
just check my end.
if anyone else is having problems with volume, do let us know. It's sounding pretty loud for me. It's coming right up to the red thing whenever I'm speaking on my red for danger on the volume, and the same for Tom's as well. So thanks for telling us though, Andre, and also thanks for telling us using entirely caps as well, which always warms the soul.
Sorry, he wants to be heard. So
and
I'll speak a bit louder as well.
Well, I wouldn't bother because everyone else is saying it's fine. So Andre, get your caps lock off and turn your volume up. Okay, yeah, in fact everyone is saying it's fine, so please don't speak any louder. Okay, let's move on to assists imminent. Okay, this really tiny table, so this will be a short one. Okay, we've got a rocker at Leeds. I don't even know who rocker at Leeds is. He's 0.1% owned.
Yeah, he plays in the pivot there.
You're really loud now for me.
Oh, okay. I did. Right, I'm going to go back to what I did before because it clearly wasn't.
Andre, don't know what he's talking about.
Right, that's back to how it was. If there's any problems now, say in the chat, and I'll. But that was how it has been for 30 minutes or whatever. So yeah, Rocker plays in the pivot, and I don't think anybody's going to be looking at him at Leeds at the moment. But nonetheless, interesting to see him on here. It looks like quite a bit of his threat is from corners by the look of that, and crosses into the box.
Yeah, so he's still 0.1% owned. Never heard of him. He's had 8 chances created. I mean, what kind of a pundit am I? Here's a player, never heard of him. 15 corners. He's marginally underperforming. 4 successful crosses and an assist. So maybe I shouldn't be ignoring him. 4.8%, 4.8 million, 0.1% owned. An option. Hey, it's that man Porro again. This is why I'm interested in him. And every time I see a player on the goals and assists imminent table, I'm interested, especially when they're a defender, because that's rare. So Fabian Schär sometimes appears on both tables. But anyway, Porro created 7 chances, taken a couple of corners last 4 matches. He's underperforming. He should have got pretty much an assist. He's had 9 successful crosses. That is a lot of successful crosses over the last 4 matches. I like him, but we've spoken about him already. But yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of a third defender who might get an attack in return, Porro could be your man. But next up is McNeil at Everton. 0.2% owned. 8 chances created, 6 corners, a goal, 6 successful crosses, but no assists. And he's underperforming in terms of expected assist delta. No one's going to get an Everton player, but they're going to score, aren't they, against Palace when we've all got Palace players in our team?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, yeah, that does seem to be the way it goes. Everton, they're in a bit of trouble, aren't they? They've got some tough fixtures coming up as well. I think they play Newcastle and Brighton and City in a few weeks. So you do worry for them a bit because such a big game for them at the weekend against Fulham, and they really needed to win that, and they didn't. But yeah, if they're going to score, McNeil's got a good chance of being involved because he puts in so many crosses and he's that perfect Dyche player, isn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think the fixtures are quite there to be looking at him.
Okay, so we'll move on for them. So we've got a few differentials there for assist imminent, and this I've got a new table here just for this one, and I've also added a name in as well because as I was compiling it, I missed him out, and then someone in on Twitter, I think it was FPL Goalfellas, was saying, I can't wait for you to talk about Willock at Newcastle. He's an uber differential. Yeah, he is. So we'll come to him in a sec. He's very cheap and he plays for Newcastle, but. We'll go with those I did put on this list. So I tried to get those that I think people are talking about and we want to sort of either get some kind of confirmation bias or might put people off. So Solanke is top in terms of best differentials. I haven't, so I haven't stopped this by like if they've scored more than one goal or two goals or whatever. It's just this is basically these are the differentials. So I've gone down the list, and if they've got low, obscene membership, I've scratch them off. So this is what we're left with. So Solanke top, 28 FPL points. He's only 5.5 million, 2.7% owned. It's really low, but I suspect it's going to be a bit higher on the free hit. 2 goals, 2 assists. Expected goal involvement getting on for nearly 4, which of course he has been involved in last 4 matches. We've spoken about him, but in the mix, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think even if you're not on a free hit, really good buy this week because they play Southampton and Leeds in the games after. So not only a good free hit option, but a good longer term as well.
Okay, Ben Rama is next. It's that man again. He's on pens. He's only 13 points, 1.1% owned, but that reflects his minutes as well. But he has scored, obviously, a penalty. Expected goal involvement. He should have been involved in 2 goals, though. So, we've spoken about him, though. Jordan Ayew at Crystal Palace. 5.3 million, 22 FPL point, 0.4% owned. How differential is that? So pretty much every single point he gets is a big rank boost. 2 goals and an assist. And his XGI is 1.83. So he's more or less on course for what he should have been doing. Palace have caught all of us on the hop. Especially me as a Brighton fan, I've been ignoring them a bit. And it's like being Zaha and no one else. And suddenly they've got loads of options. Jordan Ayew is someone I didn't even, wasn't even on my radar, but he is now. Tell me about Jordan Ayew. Why should I be considering him?
Well, he's so often flattered to deceive, hasn't he? I know him well as a former Villa player. A lot of generally very inconsistent, but he started to play because of Zaha's injury. So he's been on the left. Now, I watched the Palace Leeds game in full, and I've watched highlights of the other 2 games under Hodgson. But from what I've been watching, he deserves to be in the conversation with Eze and Elise for a spot because he is often the furthest forward player because Edouard drops off a bit. He's cutting inside. A lot of Olise's balls into the box, which is how he scored, I think, against Leeds, was one of Olise's crosses into the box. He's coming in and attacking the back post. And Hodgson clearly likes him. I think his best runs of form have come under Hodgson. And so, it's about as differential as it gets, isn't it? What is it, 0.4% ownership? But in a one-off match, there's no if you were to say, is Ayew going to outscore Eze in 4 matches? Probably not. But in one match, it could happen. Yeah. So if you're looking to chase, I don't mind going on for somebody like Ayew this week.
Next up is Joe Ellington, Newcastle. 23 points, 1.3% owned, 2 goals and an assist. He should have been involved in a couple of goals. According to his XGI stats. I've also going to add in Willock, who I left out, is 1.1% owned. Is his expected goal involvement of 2.13, which places him very high on this table, just below Solanke over his last 4 matches. We spoke a bit before we came on air. The problem with Joe Ellington and Willock isn't the fact that they've got a huge amount of threat. They play a terrible Spurs side. These are all in their favour. It's just minutes. There's too many of these good players now vying for a couple of 2 or 3 positions, aren't there? So yeah, what is the Newcastle sort of team looking like, and who are Joe Ellington and Willock competing with?
Well, they play a 4-3-3, so Bruno Guimaraes is locked in that holding role, and then it's basically two of Willock, Joelinton, and Longstaff.
Okay.
So two of those three will start as the number 8s. Almiron, I think, is back soon as well, because Joelinton, of course, can play on the left wing as well. I think Almiron's going to come back onto the right wing. But then there's Gordon, who can play on the left as well. I think St. Maximin's still out for a bit, so that kind of frees up a spot. But it is, I think Willock started against Villa, but he came off at about 65-something minutes, something like that. But when he plays, he's very good. Howe has spoken about trying to get more from his number 8s and more goal-scoring threat. And Longstaff looks a lot more threatening when he plays as well now. So what I would do is I would check Neil's team news. He's a Newcastle fan. He does all of our team news for us. He's gonna, and if he's in the predicted team, I don't hate a punt on Willock this weekend. It's I think they'll score. I think we'll get a reaction from Newcastle, as I said earlier, and I think they'll score a couple past Spurs. And if Willock's playing, there's a good chance he'll be involved, I think.
We got a couple of Palace players, but we've got a Perot in a Palace sandwich here in the middle. So I'll go with Perot first. I've been talking about him a bit. He's on the goals imminent table. He's on the assists imminent table. He's in the best differentials table. So this is irrespective of what they've done. He is, I just keep saying, he's a defender. So, he's up against these wingers. He's up against strikers, and he's still one of the best. He's got expected goal involvement of 1.58 his last 4 matches. He has indeed scored a goal. Just 12 points. He's 1.1% owned. It's just further evidence that he might come away with nothing. Very likely to concede. But if you want that attacking return from a defender and you're struggling to find a third defender, Perot could be one there. Going back to these Elise and Eze, it's a tough one, isn't it, to pick between the two? But Eze goals, we're still there, aren't we? Eze goals, Elise assists, that's the choice you make, both similar price.
Yeah, I would be tempted. I think if I had to pick between the two, I'd go Eze. I think because the weighting towards goal scorers in FPL, the additional points for it. But both can be good picks.
I put a couple of Liverpool players in as well, because after they demolished Leeds last night, suddenly Gakpo and Jota are in the conversation. Gakpo's had 15 FPL points last 4 matches. Jota's had 25. Gakpo's 4.1% and Jota 0.7%, and that's going to go up after last night, but it's still not going to go up. He's not going to be hugely owned. Gakpo's got a goal and an assist, and his expected goal involvement is 1.25. Jota, talk about overperforming, expected goal involvement of 1 over the last 4 matches. He scored twice and assisted twice. It's 4. So that's a big. So the question is Jota overperforming, and is he worth going for against Nottingham Forest this weekend? What do you think?
I think if we would have been recording this video 24 hours ago, I think we'd probably be saying Alexander-Arnold and Robertson plus Salah would be the Liverpool triple up of choice. Now, I think that last night has suddenly got people thinking about Robertson's role has perhaps changed a little bit with Alexander-Arnold moving into central midfield. He's still getting in some good positions, don't get me wrong, but I think the fact they've scored 6 goals, everybody wants to complement Salah with an attacker, and it's just which one we choose. I'll be tempted for sure. Gakpo got a couple of returns last night. Jota got 3 returns. Yeah. The problem is that you've got Luis Diaz coming back now. I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready to start yet. No. I think he's going to be more of an impact sub. Yeah. But then you've got Firmino. But again, I think he's winding down his Liverpool career. I don't think he's an immediate threat for starts. But it's Darwin Núñez, isn't it? And he came on. He got the goal. Is he going to start at the weekend? And if he does, I would probably say it would be over Jota. I could be wrong on that. But Gakpo's been playing more through the middle. So I'd kind of immediately think, well, maybe it's Firmino more of his threat. But I can see why people would roll the dice on it. I think I'll be really tempted on one of those two if I do play the free hit.
The way I look at it is that with so many choices, if I don't see them in the starting 11, I don't think it's the end of the world, because with a midweek game coming up in game week 33 quickly, and because of their performance anyway, I think if they start, chances are you're going to get 60 minutes out of Gakpo and Jota. But you might get a bit more. Or if you don't see him start and you get the last 30 minutes, the last 30... I mean, we've seen it so many times with Liverpool, with Firmino coming in or Darwin Núñez coming in. Whoever comes in, suddenly there's a late goal. There's another late goal with Liverpool last time out, wasn't it? With Alexander-Arnold scoring, assisting rather.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll take 30 minutes of Jota as a 1 week punt, I think, basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do kind of get that, because Forest are so bad at the moment. They haven't won in 10 games. There's no threat from them. I mean, it would be very, very FPL like for Liverpool to lose this 1-0, wouldn't it? But you've got to think they're going to put a few past Forest, and I think that's why we're desperate to try and find somebody to sit alongside Salah. And both of these guys could do very, very well.
Definitely. Okay, let's have a look at move on to your team. So as ever in the live chat, have a think about some questions. Do put a question mark on it as well, so I can see it quickly as I scroll through. But while we talk about our teams, have a think of some questions, put them in, and I'll search through for those with a question mark. So this is your team. Now your team's a bit different to mine because you're free hit curious, and so you could free hit, but you could quite easily just take a hit and field 11 players. So let's have a look at your team. Do you want to go through it and tell us what you're thinking and where you are with the free hit decision so far?
Yeah, I'll tell you where I am, and then it'd be good to hear from you, Joe, and what you would do in my situation, and the chat as well. Chip in with any suggestions and what you think you would do. So this is how it currently looks with no transfers. I've got one free transfer and very little in the bank as well. But the team is Raya in goal. Five defenders, Trippier, Keane, Botman, Gabriel, and Alex Moreno. Just the one midfielder, everybody else blanks. So it's just Saka, who's the current captain, and then two forwards, Kane and Watkins, which I think we'll see in a lot of free hit teams as well. So the players who blank, double Brighton, got McAllister and Marsh, double Man United, Fernandes and Rashford, and then I've got Kepa and Haaland.
Okay.
So to field 11, I would probably have to sell. Well, I'd have to sell two of the players who blank. And if I were to do it, I'd probably sell Fernandes and Haaland and bring in Salah and potentially Jesus for a -4.
Okay. And then that would actually leave you with a really good side with just a hit. But it will also leave you without Haaland. And
so that would, if I did that, I'd have to switch Kane to Haaland for my game week 33 transfer. So you'd be taking him out so I can field 11 this week, then bringing him back in. Now, that all it doesn't sound terrible to me, that plan. But the problem is I'm taking out a player like Fernandes to be able to afford Salah when really I want Fernandes back for the double game week. I probably will want him for that.
Yeah.
So that is, and looking at my defence, I've got some good picks. I think Gabriel's a great pick this week. I think Trippier's fine. I think Alex Moreno's fine. Double Newcastle defence probably isn't optimal, but it's okay. So I'm kind of looking at it, but then I'm thinking, what am I saving the free hit for? Because this team is well set up for game week 34.
Yeah. You would have
got two new.
Yeah. I was going to say, virtually half this team you would want to field in 34.
Yeah, and 36 if we get that Brighton Newcastle double. Then I've got two players from each side. I can add a third. Game week 37, we think we're going to get more doubles. Again, it'll be Brighton, Man City, Man United, Chelsea teams I've already got players from. So why am I holding the free hit? I can avoid the points hit this week, the -4, and we can attack that. I can already attack the Arsenal fixture with the transfers, but if I make those two transfers, which I spoke about, I'd only have one Liverpool player in Salah, and that doesn't feel great when people will be going in with Alexander-Arnold and Gakpo or Jota as well as Salah. So I suppose I am like 7, maybe after talking through that, I'm closer to 80-20 to play the free hit. So I think it will happen, but it's just interesting to go through it all and see what other possibilities are like, what the team looks like with a -4, and then and I go from there. What I mean, in my position, what would you do, Joe?
I would free hit, not
Mm,
necessarily because of this team at the moment in terms of what you're fielding for 32, because by getting Fernandes and Haaland out and getting Salah and an Arsenal midfield, was it?
Jesus, probably it would be,
Jesus,
or could be any forward,
yeah,
really.
Jesus, or
Mm,
then that would leave you with a pretty strong side that would compete with free hit sides. It might
mm,
not. It might actually be better in some areas. It might not in others. But it's what you were talking through there. What are you saving it for? And also,
mm.
this is really well set up as well. It's sort of my one's was definitely only set up to free hit this week. Yours is sort of a hybrid. It could do it and could not. But I think the reward this week would be better in terms of future weeks because it would enable you to keep Fernandes, keep Haaland. You've
Yeah,
still got Rashford there when he's back. You can keep your Brighton assets there. You don't have to worry about your Chelsea. You've got the team, the makings of a Game Week 34 double Game Week team already there, and prepare and those two Newcastle players for the double. You almost don't want to ruin it too much. You just want to tinker with this the next few weeks. And
yeah, I'd
32
agree.
is
Yeah.
32 is just really annoying for this team, isn't it? It's just in its way, and which is
Yeah,
perfect
and
free hit time, I think.
yeah, because if I free hit this week, and then I think like a lot of people, you're saving 33,
Mm.
and then I probably take out Saka and Kane to bring Salah
Yeah,
in and another forward for that 34 double. So I think it all seems to make a bit more sense free hitting than scrambling around
yeah.
for minus fours this week. And again, I don't know when I'd play the free hit anyway. It would probably be in a single game
Mm.
week. So yeah, I think the free hit probably will be activated
Yeah.
ahead of deadline.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you can get most of the popular picks, but yeah, it's that future game. It just makes life. I mean, I the way I play FPL is I like to try and keep it as simple as I can. And the last two seasons with COVID and all the rest of it has been very difficult to manage. It's been messy. You can play your chip, and then suddenly the whole. I remember playing my wild cards, anticipating a blank game week, and then suddenly there was a global pandemic, and football
Yeah,
stopped for 3 months or 2 months. So I
yeah,
couldn't I couldn't have predicted that. And that was mess, and that made it all messy, and the plan was out. But this time it's perfect. You can plan or wild card pre 32 to take advantage of the double game week in 29, and then you can deal with this as a free hit or plan for it. And if you've still got your wild card, you can do that. You've got nice chunks, double game weeks,
yeah,
blank, couple more double game weeks, and you can plan for that. And in those situations, the sandwich in this it's just a really annoying week to not free hit unless you plan for that, and you sort of haven't, so you're in the middle. So I would say you've got that choice, which is a nice way to be. You could got that choice, but I personally, if I had this team, I would free hit it and think, well, happy days for the other game weeks.
yeah. No, I think I'm certainly leaning towards that, but it's always good to hear other opinions and if they back it up. I mean, I was quite close to pulling the trigger on your recommended transfer last week, Joe, when you said bring in Steele, but obviously as my keeper
Well,
transfer.
yeah.
But then there was obviously the doubts, which
Mm,
before which came out Friday afternoon in
mm,
Desabi's presser, so that put me off that.
yeah.
But that would have been a move which
Mm.
I probably looked at as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's have a look at my team. So this is potentially what you could have. So this is the makings of my free hit team. This has 5 million in the bank. So I've got plenty of room to play around with here. So I've got a 3-4-3. I've got Johnston in goal, Alex Moreno in defence, and Alexander Arnold. I think they're pretty much locks. I think Alex Moreno could concede, but he's got that attacking threat. And I mean, you're a Villa fan. I'm just checking. He is safe, isn't he? He's not going to be replaced or anything.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
no.
well, the only reason I stall on it is he's in my team. I obviously
Mm,
think he's worth buying.
mm,
Emre kept referencing Luca Dean in his post-match press conference the other day and saying that Moreno was benefiting from the competition that Luca Dean was offering him. The fact that we have 3 matches in a short space of time next week, it wouldn't surprise me if Luca Dean comes in 33. But I think the fact that the timing of this one, the fact that we've had a week off running up to it, I don't see him changing it. So I think Alex Moreno's safe for this week. It wouldn't surprise me if beyond that match, which is annoying for me, because I need him in 33, if he did sit out one of them. But I think at Brentford, I think he'll be fine.
Okay, and my third defender is the guy we've all been talking about, Perot, on the goals and assists imminent table and the best differentials table as a defender, mixing with the likes of Solanke and all those other differentials. I think he's sort of one of the best of the rest. I don't want to double up on the Liverpool defence. I don't want to get an Arsenal defender because I like their attack. And so I think I'm going to go for him. But I do have another plan. I currently...
Not keen on Trippier, Joe?
No, because... No. Well, possibly. I mean, but in a sort of... okay.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's not that exciting.
Yeah. It's like if you're offered the choice between brown and white bread, I always say white bread because it's nicer, even though it's worse.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I think you've had Trippier in your team for so long, you probably want to freshen it up a bit.
You know, but if they say, hey, we've only got brown bread, do you fancy that for toast? I'll go, oh, all right. And that's the same with Trippier. All we got is Trippier left. Do you fancy that? He's at the bottom shelf. So yeah, I don't rule him out. And he's been in a lot of my teams. But the fact is he's gone out and I've got loads of money tied up in him. I don't care about that. so I'm not like tied to Trippier. No. So Perot's there. But what I'm tempted to do when I go through the rest of my team is get another Palace defender and just go all out. Because a lot of free hit teams are going to have Johnson. But not a lot are going to double up on the Palace defence. If we're looking for clean sheets, then I think against Everton at home, Palace has got a better chance than most other teams, I think. So I think a double Palace defence, Mark Gahey, someone like that, would be good for me. Anyway, that's my back line. I've got a 3-4-3. I've got Eze, who's currently my favoured Palace midfielder. I do want to play a Palace midfielder this week. I've got Saka. He's my shield. He's gone off the ball a bit, but he can get a 20-point return any given week, and it's home Southampton. So I do not... I need to cover that because he's going to be captained. His effective ownership is going to be huge because people just go for the familiar name there. Martinelli is in fact the better Arsenal midfielder, I believe. He's working so well with Jesus, so he is my vice captain at the moment in that 3-4-3, that 4-man midfield. And I've got Salah as captain, like a lot of people there. I've got up front Jesus. He's another lock for me. We're going to have a captaincy video. We're recording it tomorrow, and I'm probably going to publish that on Thursday. I'm going to do that with Mark, and that's going to talk about a number of these teams here. Jesus is a serious captain consideration. He's posting up enormous stats. You know, we when we started doing the goals imminent videos, Jesus was always on it. We just took him off because he was injured, but he's always there. I'll take 60 minutes of Jesus over pretty much any other striker, really, apart from Haaland. Then I've got Jota. It was last night it persuaded me, so recency bias there. Jota has in various times this week been Kane and Solanke. I rejected the idea of Kane because I thought, why have I got Kane? Because it's quite a tough fixture. He's a lot of money. And I could just about get Kane with this team. And that's why I've got like the likes of Keane in there on the bench because it may be, I think, Kane always finds a way, but I think I prefer Solanke to Kane this week, and I think I prefer Jota if he plays to both of them. And then I've got Watkins. There's no way Watkins is going anywhere because he can't stop. He's like Jamie Vardy from a couple of seasons ago. When Jamie Vardy got that, was it 10, 11 games in a row he kept scoring?
Yeah, it just didn't stop.
Well, Watkins is that. He's got that scoring bug. So Moorish, these goals. And on my bench, I've gone cheap. I've got Everson. I've got Keane and that Leicester defender face who when he scores his own goals. They're temporary. I'm just getting there just in case I want to get Kane. They're not going to stay, but they're on the bench. Elise is on my bench as well. So my plans to change this are Elise to Pereira. So I'll have even more money in the bank. I think Pereira is the absolute top first sub I'm gonna regret not playing, but it's a really handy player in case no one shows up. And then that enables me, that frees up a Palace spot to just go double Palace defence. I mean, a lot of free hit teams have got Johnston. Well, why not get more Palace points if we think Johnston's going to keep a clean sheet? And then so that may be my only change, which is a bit weird. So I'm shunning Kane, and I think basically triple Liverpool, triple Arsenal, captain one of them, preferably Salah, and fill it with some differentials and shields, and see how I go. But yeah, do you have any thoughts about this before we move on?
Well, the Kane kind of question is the big one, isn't it? I think a lot of people are discussing that, and I get why he isn't in the team, because yeah, Kane can pop up whenever and score. He's very consistent, but if you think there's going to be a reaction at Newcastle, it's hard to back Kane. I mean, we were looking at some stats yesterday, and no forward has gone to St James's Park this season and got more than one attacking return.
That's what I thought.
I think the most a forward has scored at St James's Park this season is 6 points. And I think it was Haaland when he went and he just got the goal. I don't think he got any bonus. So they generally keep things very tight at St James's Park. Spurs aren't exactly at their kind of fluid attacking best at the moment under Stellini, are they? It looks very kind of a bit of a lack of imagination, really. And yeah, Kane can pop out up and do the business, of course. But I just think this week I can completely see why you're targeting those Southampton and Forest fixtures with Jesus and Jota or whoever that might be, and Watkins. I mean, I don't think Watkins has blanked under Emery on the road in away matches.
No,
he just runs away.
I mean, he could do it against Newcastle, but Villa, I mean, as you know, as a Villa fan, Villa are really good at the moment. They're totally clicking. Everything is geared towards him. I heard Ollie Watkins being interviewed on the radio the other day, and he referred to himself in the third person. So he's going Ibrahimovic. That's the way his mind's working. But as talking about Solanke earlier, strikers who talk about themselves in the third person and are cocky and those kinds of things. I want strikers like that, because you want them full of confidence. Because and go for goal, shoot for goal whenever they can.
Unai Emery's always had a way with strikers of getting the best out of them, and this team is completely set up for Watkins and to get the most out of him. And I would find it really hard to leave him out on a free hit.
Okay. So I mean, I've got lots of. I mean, there's a lot of choice this week, and what I'm not. I mean, I think in some sort of more sort of lazy comments on social media about free hit teams look the same. I haven't seen any that look the same. There's so much choice.
I think after last night, I think the fact that people are probably removing a bit of Robertson, I think it's quite interesting now.
So for example, Utsaf in the chat is basically, he's not keen on Perot, Moreno, and Eze. He calls them Mayor, but he proposes the likes of, say, Maddison or Isak. So he prefers Maddison over Eze, but obviously Isak can't be instead of Perot, Moreno. So I don't know whether the fact is he prefers Isak, but presumably at the cost of either Jota, Jesus, Watkins, Solanke, Kane. So it's another name to add into the mix. So
yeah, he's good. If we knew he'd play, and I think he probably will. He does feel first choice there now, but it's just that threat of Wilson, isn't it? So again, have a look at the team news on Friday before deadline.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about Maddison earlier. Utsav in the live chat's talking about him as well. I mean, Maddison, but I mean, I don't know which of these to remove. I mean, if any of them, I think Saka would be the one, but he's playing home to Southampton. He's going to be world captain. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm very close to a grey arrow again. I was almost. I think only a bonus point change, but I was. So I'm about 11,000 still, and I'm not in a position. I don't need to mess around with this. I need to get my shields and swords and try and consolidate.
If you're chasing, I could see why somebody would go Odegaard in that spot, or even if we get a bit of a team news league, even Trossard, if he's come. And we haven't spoken about him. We're presuming that it's going to be, but we can't forget that Arsenal play Man City on the Wednesday after.
Yeah.
So if Arsenal, I do find, well, if they're 2-0 up, they're not going to make any subs because they keep throwing away. Maybe if they're 3 or 4-0 up, they might they might make a few changes. So I don't think, can't influence our thoughts too much, but it wouldn't surprise me if Trossard starts this one. So
Yeah, well, that would be instead of Martinelli or Jesus. And
yeah.
That would be annoying.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying that the time, they have to win this game. So you might just roll out the same team and try and get the confidence levels back up ahead of that City game. But yeah, if they're winning comfortably, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them's taken off. But then if they're winning comfortably, there's a good chance that your player's returned anyway. So.
Okay, so I've got a lot of decisions still to be made. This is very much in flux, but this is a draft as it is now, with a lot of money in the bank. As you were saying earlier, basically team news is going to be key, particularly the right Arsenal and Liverpool assets. I think they're going to be key to a good game week, a Green Arrow or not. Let's move on to some questions from those in the live chat. So hopefully you can get some questions into us. Already name checked Utsav there with some of his alternative choices there. So I will have a look through. If you can put any questions in the live chat, put a question mark on them and I'll go through them. So I'm just going to scroll up and see if we've got any questions up here. Okay, so Le Cornichon says he has a full 11 with 3 Brighton and Hove players on the bench. Should I save my should I save my wild card for game week 33? That is an unusual team. So that if he's got 3 Brighton players on the bench, that means he's only got 1 of Haaland, any Manchester United players, any Chelsea players, or any other Man City players. So that tells me that he should wildcard ahead of game week 34 because he's going to want to stock up on those lads. So the answer to that is play your If he's in any way thinking about wildcarding this week, don't. But wildcard before game week 34 definitely. So game week 33.
Yeah,
be a yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's have a look down here. Ishan asks, what about Tony? Yeah, what about Tony? He's another one. Yeah. He's another one that could come in my side. Yeah, he's good, but playing Villa, I don't know if he's going to get a lot of points against Villa.
He tends to do well at home. I mean, we thought this in the Newcastle match. A lot of us took him out, which was only a couple of weeks ago, and he could have had a hat-trick in the first half. He's on my list of forwards to consider. I haven't seen him in many free hit teams, but we're good at the moment. We're playing very well, but that doesn't mean to say that Brighton won't get a couple of chances in that game. And he's the focal point of that team, isn't he, Tony? You'd expect him to. The Brentford do. I don't want to say on the beach, but they do seem to have taken their foot off the gas a little bit, and that isn't that. I don't really like that so much, but. Yeah, you've got Payne, you've got Watkins, you've got Tony, you've got Solanke, you've got Jesus, and they're probably you're probably picking one of Tony, Solanke, or Jesus or Kane for that final spot. So I think there can be a bit of differentiation in these free hit sides.
Codemaster's thoughts on Utara at Bournemouth. He's at Bournemouth. He's a good differential, but we've just listed about 20, and we've only got 15 places, and we can only field 11. So
yeah, hard to fit in.
That's yes, he's a good option, but there's possibly better. But
I think you prefer Solanke. I think I prefer Solanke.
Yeah, like that. I do as well. Billing, I would also prefer Billing to Utara.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout as well, Billing as well. I could see him doing well this weekend.
Brian asks, Son as a free hits differential. Yeah, I don't rule Son out. I mean, I can't remember who it was now. Utsav was in the chat talking about, say, Maddison as a better option. But Son seems a bit revived. I seem to remember him doing okay against Newcastle previously, but sort of the old Newcastle, that is. I guess if you haven't got the money, but money's not really an option. But if you want to get a Spurs attacker, but I don't know. There just seems to be better options, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a look at him because you're looking for these free hit differentials, which nobody's going to have who have got that explosive nature about them. And Son's actually got, 3 or 4 attacking returns in the last 5 games. So he has been kind of producing points, albeit not massive hauls. But the problem is it's the eye test with Son. I watched them against Everton a week or so ago, and he was really, really poor. And he has been in a lot of games that I've watched in this season. He just doesn't look on it at all. But if you want to go for a punt, he's obviously got the ability. He could have one of those days where everything goes for him. I find it hard to put him ahead of Kane as an option because of the penalties. But for some people, they'll want to roll. If you're ranked 200 or 300k or lower, in a one-game scenario, this might be the week to just fill your team with some differentials. And if you're looking for those, then Son is probably one of the more explosive ones to get. But again, it's a hard match, isn't it, at Newcastle?
I've got a couple of questions from Tim and Az Razak, but I'm not going to answer them just because they're the ones like, who do you predict to be the front three? And we've already spoken about that at Liverpool. We don't know yet, but watch the team news and we'll have a look and see, talk to Neil and see if he's had anything he can get from Klopp in the press conference. But at the moment, it's impossible for any of us to say. And if any pundit on an FPL show is saying, oh, it's definitely going to be these three playing at this stage of the week, then they're not waiting for the actual reality of it.
It feels like it'd be hard to drop because they were unchanged last night. It feels like it'd be harsh to drop any of them. I mean, they weren't great in the first 30 or so minutes last night, but after that they really ramped it up. So Salah feels pretty locked. And it's hard to drop Gakpo and Jota after last night, isn't it?
I think they'll get minutes. That's all I can answer to that. I don't know whether they'll both start. I mean, Salah, I think will start, but Gakpo and Jota, I think will start. But if they don't, I don't mind as much because it would probably indicate they're going to get the last 30 minutes or so, which I'm also okay with. It's just a 1 week punt. And I know that Liverpool can score in the final minutes, so it doesn't bother me too much. What's Ishan, Liverpool double defence too much? Yeah, that's the conclusion I've come to. I think they're going to concede. So I'm not.
Yeah, I think Alexander-Arnold in this kind of midfield role that he's moving into, does it affect Robertson's positioning a little bit? Yes, I think it probably does. And I don't have that much confidence in the Liverpool defence either, which is why you want them for attacking returns and the attacking threat. And I just think after they're going to be going into that Forest match against a Forest side who have got the worst away record in the league. I think they've conceded 36 goals away from home this year or something ridiculous. So I can understand why people are suddenly saying, well, let's go double attack.
Definitely. ZG asks, he doesn't have a blank this game week. So you can, like you can get players out, but should he save his free hit for the double game week? Well, we've sort of gone over this and you're in that same position. Depends what you're saving the free hit for.
Depends what your team is.
Depends what your team is. And it also depends who you've got this week. So if you can field 11, but that doesn't include Salah, another Liverpool player, only one Arsenal player, and some of those Palace players and other players that people are considering, then free hit. It just depends who you've got. So, I mean, go back, have a look at our team, have a look at some of the other videos. We've got FPL Harry has got his video coming up later today with his free hit draft. Have a look at that. Have a look at what they were saying on the Scoutcast with their free hit as well. And Burning Questions is going to be on, and us as well with free hit chat. Have a look at the teams that are being put up. Do you have a lot of those players? And if the answer's no, that doesn't mean that we're great and you're not. All that means is that you're up against these teams. That's what you're up against. So you're betting against them.
If you've got Brighton, if you've got Man City, if you've got Man United players, I think the free hit makes a lot of sense this week because you're going to want those. You've already got those players for 34. Similar teams are going to double in 37, Brighton, City, Man United, Chelsea. So, it depends on the personnel that you've got. But if your team looks a bit like mine, then I think it probably does make sense to free hit this week, and especially if it's more like yours, Joe, what it did look like. So.
And a few questions, including from Oscar here about Arsenal as well. They're saying that triple attack from Arsenal looks the best way to go, just because they're against Southampton and they do have a habit of conceding. But in general, we said, what are thoughts on Ben White? And we had another question as well. Ben White over Gabriel, if you're going for an Arsenal defender.
Yeah.
So Ben White is the Arsenal defender of choice now? Possibly
Well,
I
it's him
would.
or Gabriel. I mean, Ben White's got a few attacking returns recently, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And gets a bit more advanced. So Gabriel's relying on kind of headers and set piece threat. And he did have a chance at the weekend against West Ham quite early on. The thing is with Arsenal defence, and I really like this fixture from a defensive perspective because Southampton under Ruben Sellers have been really poor in attack. I would only put an Arsenal defender in if Saliba's back because playing with Rob Holding at the moment, and Zinchenko was out and they had to bring Tierney in at the weekend. The real problem, though, is Holding, though. I think he can be a bit of a liability.
Okay.
And I don't feel as confident with him in there. If Saliba came back in, then I think you think, oh, great, they might get that bit of solidity back. But I don't think he is going to be back for that, which is why I'm kind of looking at the triple attack for this one.
Yeah, I am as well. And just finally, I mean, we up to an hour and a quarter. We usually do a bit less than that, but we'll squeeze in a couple more questions. But one about the Wolves defence, says Ask Yun.
Yeah.
Thoughts on the Wolves defence? I mean, that is key for the next question, which is from JP. Thoughts on Maddison? So we have spoke about Maddison, but we haven't actually spoken about the Wolves defence. Can Wolves actually keep Leicester at bay? And we talked about, Dean Smith, new manager bounce at home, Maddison being good. But what is? I mean, I've ignored the Wolves' defence this season, but is it any good?
Well, they're getting, offering a bit of improvement under Lopetegui recently. We wrote about it on site. Totti's been playing at left back, and he's only 3.8 million, so he seems like a ready kind of a perfect bench player for a free hit. Do I think they can keep a clean sheet at Leicester? No, I don't think so, because I think Smith will they'll be up for this one. I'd be very surprised if they keep a clean sheet. So fine to stick a 3.8 million pound Totti on your bench, but I've seen Sarr in a few free hit drafts, and I suppose the advantages with that is that it could make quite a few he could get some save points, but I don't see the clean sheet. Whereas with the Palace defence, with is it Johnston? Yeah. He's come in for Guatiu, who's been injured, and you could see a clean sheet there, couldn't you, against Everton, especially if Calvert-Lewin's still out.
That brings us on to the final point. It's not really a question, but it's just Shizza talking about something that I was sort of talking through about a defence and going double Palace defence. I don't know why we're bothering with a third defender from another team. Might as well just go for the team we think is going to get a clean sheet. And Shizza's saying, clean Crystal Palace double defence is the way to go, he feels.
I can see why that. It is a difficult week for defenders. So do you focus on the side like Palace, who have probably got one of the better chances of a clean sheet, or do you think I'm going to go for that attacking threat of Porro, who's probably going to concede, but he's got that assist goal potential? But I can see why people would double on Palace defence and get Anderson or Cahill or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Thanks so much to all those who joined us in the live chat. So many of you there, a good few hundred of you now. I hope we've given you some food for thought, whether you're free hitting or not. And especially on some of those differentials that we're considering. Lots of options this week. Free hit teams are going to be different, and there's going to be a big chance to move up and down those mini league rankings. Tom, thanks a lot for joining. Good luck with your decision, whichever way you go to free hit or not. It sounds like you probably will be free hitting, but good luck with that. And
thanks, Joe.
We'll see you again next week. Plenty more videos to come. Also, all available on the podcast. Do press like and subscribe and all that jazz. See you soon.
Thanks, Joe.